Nothing says happy marriage like dueling calendar invites and separate beds. My name is Ethan Ross, and at 39, I've mastered the art of being invisible in my own life. Design engineering pays the bills, but apparently it doesn't pay enough to keep my wife, Lana, interested in anything beyond my direct deposit. I'm sitting in our South Loop apartment nursing my third cup of coffee while staring at a cryptic note I found tucked between our utility bills. I just did what you never dared. Lana's handwriting, sharp and decisive like everything else about her. The woman who used to laugh at my jokes now treats conversation like a deposition. "Morning, sunshine," I called out when she emerged from our bedroom. Her bedroom, really, since I'd been relegated to the couch 3 months ago. She wore that charcoal suit that cost more than my monthly car payment, her auburn hair pulled back in a style that screamed, "Don't mess with me." "I'll be late tonight," she said without looking up from her phone. "Client dinner." "Another one?" "That's the 4th this week." Her green eyes flicked toward me with the warmth of a tax audit. "Some of us are trying to advance our careers, Ethan. You should try it sometime." The barb hit its target. 6 months ago, I'd applied for a senior position at Morrison & Associates, the architectural firm that contracted with Lana's law office. I'd been perfect for it. 15 years of experience, stellar reviews, connections through Lana's network. Instead, they'd given it to someone with half my qualifications and twice my ambition. "Right," I said. Silly me, thinking marriage meant we were a team. She was already halfway to the door. "Teams require equal players, Ethan." The apartment felt smaller after she left, like the walls were closing in on my mediocrity. I grabbed my jacket and headed to Banner Engineering, where my boss, Mr. Banner, a gruff 60-year-old who'd survived 3 recessions and 2 divorces, was waiting with the day's assignments. "Ross, you look like garbage," he announced cheerfully. "Marriage troubles?" "Just living the dream, sir." "Ha! Dreams are for people who can afford them. Speaking of which, heard your wife landed that promotion at Morrison. Good for her." I stopped mid-step. "What promotion?" Banner's weathered face shifted from amusement to concern. "The senior project coordinator position. Thought you knew. Hell, thought you recommended her." The world tilted slightly. That was my position. The one I'd interviewed for twice. The one they'd said was still under review. The one Lana knew I wanted more than anything. "When?" I managed. "Yesterday. Company-wide email went out this morning. Big celebration tonight at that fancy place downtown. Meridian or something." I spent the rest of the day in a fog, mechanically reviewing blueprints while my mind raced. How had Lana gotten my job? More importantly, why hadn't she told me? By 5 o'clock, I had my answer. I was going to crash their little celebration. The Meridian buzzed with the kind of energy that only comes from expensive wine and other people's money. I spotted Lana immediately, radiant in a red dress I'd never seen before, surrounded by the Morrison power structure like a queen holding court. And there, with his hand resting just a little too casually on her lower back, was Victor Salerno. Vic to his friends, managing partner to everyone else. Vic was everything I wasn't, tall, silver-haired, confident in that way that comes from never having to check your bank balance before buying coffee. His wife was notably absent. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I nursed a whiskey at the bar and watched my wife work the room. She was magnificent, I had to admit. Every gesture calculated, every smile precisely calibrated to extract maximum advantage. When she laughed at something Vic whispered in her ear, leaning into him like they shared secrets, I felt something cold settle in my chest. "Ethan!" Sasha Martinez appeared beside me, slightly unsteady from wine. Sasha worked HR at Morrison, had been Lana's friend since law school, though their relationship had always struck me as more competitive than supportive. "Surprised to see you here." Thought I'd congratulate my wife on her big promotion." Sasha's laugh had an edge. "Oh, honey, Lana's always been willing to do whatever it takes to get ahead. Guess it finally paid off." "What's that supposed to mean?" She leaned closer, wine making her indiscreet. "Let's just say she's been putting in a lot of overtime lately. Very dedicated to client relations." Her eyes drifted toward Vic, who was now guiding Lana toward a quieter corner of the restaurant. I watched them disappear behind a partition, my grip tightening on the glass. When they returned 15 minutes later, Lana's lipstick was gone and Vic's tie was slightly askew. The pieces clicked into place with mechanical precision. The late nights, the separate bedrooms, the mysterious note, the job that should have been mine. I left without saying goodbye. Back home, I tore through Lana's things with the methodical thoroughness of an engineer solving a structural problem. In her purse, tucked behind her credit cards, I found a hotel keycard, the Fairmont, room 1247, and a receipt dated 3 days ago, the same day Morrison had made their hiring decision. But I needed proof, real, undeniable evidence. The Fairmont's security system was surprisingly easy to access. Years of designing building systems had taught me that most places prioritize convenience over security. A friendly conversation with the night manager, a story about investigating insurance fraud, and $50 in cash got me access to the hallway footage from 3 days ago. There they were, clear as daylight, Lana and Vic entering room 1247 at 2:30 p.m. But that wasn't the devastating part. The devastating part came from the audio I managed to extract from the hallway security system. Voices carry in hotel corridors, especially when people think they're being discreet. "Told you, Ethan's too soft for this business." Lana's voice, slightly muffled but unmistakable. "He'd never have the nerve to really go after what he wants." "Unlike you," Vic's reply, followed by sounds I didn't want to analyze too closely. "He actually thought he had a chance at that position. It's almost sad." "Well, now it's yours. You've certainly earned it." Their laughter echoed in the corridor like breaking glass. I sat in my car outside the Fairmont for an hour, watching the footage on my laptop. My wife, the woman I'd supported through law school, who'd promised to love and honor me, had just negotiated my professional humiliation between the sheets. The rage that filled me wasn't hot. It was cold, calculating, patient. The kind of anger that builds bridges and designs skyscrapers. The kind that plans. I smiled for the first time in months. "Too soft?" I said to my reflection in the rearview mirror. "We'll see about that." The hotel manager was surprisingly cooperative when I returned the next morning, this time armed with a fake business card identifying me as a compliance investigator for Morrison and Associates. Amazing how a cheap laminator and 10 minutes with Photoshop can open doors. "We take client confidentiality very seriously," I explained to Jerry, the day manager, a nervous man in his 40s who clearly didn't get paid enough to deal with corporate investigations. "But when it involves potential conflicts of interest?" Of course, Jerry stammered, leading me to the security office. "We want to cooperate fully." Within an hour, I had copies of everything. Hallway footage, elevator cameras, even the lobby security feeds showing Lana and Vic's arrivals and departures. The timestamps told a story more damning than any divorce attorney could have scripted. But the real treasure was the audio. Hotel security systems are more sophisticated than most people realize, especially in establishments that cater to the kind of clientele who might need protection from industrial espionage. The hallway microphones had captured everything. Back in my apartment, I spent the afternoon editing. Nothing elaborate, just a simple compilation with timestamps and clear audio. The video quality was surprisingly good, showing Lana and Vic entering the room, their body language leaving little doubt about their intentions. The audio provided the context, my wife using personal leverage for my job while mocking my lack of ambition. I titled it, "Corporate Advancement, How Far Would You Go?" and uploaded it to 3 platforms. The Morrison and Associates internal network, courtesy of Lana's saved passwords on our shared computer. a legal industry forum where I knew her colleagues lurked, and for good measure, a general business networking site where both firms maintained profiles. Then, I waited. The first response came within 20 minutes, a text from Sasha. "Holy crap, Ethan, what did you do?" I replied with a simple shrug emoji. By noon, my phone was buzzing constantly. Lana's number appeared on my screen every few minutes, but I let it go to voicemail. I had work to do. The video was spreading like wildfire through Chicago's legal community. The comments were brutal. "Is this how Morrison makes hiring decisions now? Guess we know what client relations really means. That's somebody's husband she's talking about. Disgusting. Vic's wife should see this." Oh, she would. I made sure of that, creating an anonymous email account and sending Linda Salerno the link with a simple message. "Thought you should know what your husband does during his lunch meetings." By 3 o'clock, the video had been viewed over 2,000 times. By 5, Morrison and Associates had issued an internal memo about inappropriate content and pending investigations. By 6, Vic Salerno was reportedly in his lawyer's office. Lana finally came home at 8, her face a mask of barely controlled fury. She slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. "You pathetic, vindictive little man," she snarled, throwing her purse across the room. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" I looked up from my laptop, where I was monitoring the video's continued spread across social media. "Promoted transparency in corporate hiring practices. You've ruined everything. My career, my reputation." "Your reputation?" I closed the laptop slowly, savoring the moment. Interesting choice of words. I thought you'd built your reputation on legal expertise, not recreational activities. She moved toward me, and for a moment, I thought she might actually strike me. Instead, she grabbed her phone and started dialing frantically. "Damage control?" I asked. "Good luck with that. The internet has a long memory." Her first call went to voicemail. So did the second, and the third. Word travels fast in legal circles, and apparently, everyone was suddenly too busy to take Lana Ross's calls. "You think you're so clever," she said, her voice shaking with rage. "You have no idea what you've started. Enlighten me." She smiled then, cold and predatory. "You want to play games, Ethan? Fine. But remember, I'm a lawyer. I know how to destroy people legally." She stormed into the bedroom and emerged 10 minutes later with 2 suitcases. "I'm staying at a hotel. When I come back, you'd better be gone." "Actually," I said, pulling out my phone, "this is my apartment. Lease is in my name, remember? You insisted on keeping your credit separate." Her face went white. In her rush to maintain financial independence, she'd overlooked some practical details. "You can't. I can. And I am. You want to play hardball? Game on." After she left, I poured myself a whiskey and checked my bank accounts. Our joint checking account showed a balance of 0. Our savings account, also cleaned out. Even the emergency fund we'd built up for home repairs was gone. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is just the start. L." I laughed out loud. Lana had just made a crucial error. She'd escalated to financial warfare, which meant she'd opened up new avenues for retaliation. And unlike her, I actually understood how money worked. I spent the evening making phone calls, first to the bank, reporting unauthorized withdrawals and requesting account freezes, then to my credit card companies, removing Lana as an authorized user, finally to my insurance agent, removing her from my policies. By midnight, Lana Ross was financially cut off from everything we'd built together. Her credit cards were canceled, her access to our accounts blocked, and her health insurance terminated. I went to bed on the couch, my choice now, not hers, and slept better than I had in months. The next morning brought fresh developments. Sasha called early, her voice tight with barely suppressed glee. "You need to know," she said. "Linda Salerno showed up at the office yesterday afternoon with a lawyer. Vic's been suspended pending investigation. The partners are in full panic mode. And Lana? Officially, she's taking a leave of absence to address personal matters. Unofficially, she's radioactive. Nobody wants to be associated with the Morrison scandal. I found myself grinning. That's terrible news. Oh, it gets better. Apparently Linda's filing for divorce and demanding a forensic accounting of all firm assets. If there's been any financial impropriety, Vic could lose everything. Already has, from what I hear. The other partners voted him out this morning. 30 years building that firm, and it's gone. After hanging up, I walked to my car and stopped short. Someone had spray-painted "loser" across the windshield in bright red letters. All 4 tires had been slashed, and a note was tucked under the wipers. Told you this was just the start. I called Miles Rodriguez, my only real friend, an ex-cop who now managed buildings in the neighborhood. He arrived 20 minutes later with coffee and a camera. "Classy," he said, photographing the damage. "Your wife?" "Ex-wife, hopefully. Can you run prints on the note?" "Probably, but I doubt she was stupid enough to leave any. This feels more like hired help." As if on cue, my phone rang. Lana's number. "Enjoying your morning?" she asked sweetly. "Insurance will cover it. Thanks for asking." "That's just a taste, Ethan. I have resources you can't imagine. Friends in very interesting places." "Funny thing about friends," I said. "They tend to disappear when scandal comes calling. Ask Vic." The line went quiet for a long moment. Then, "You think you've won something. You have no idea what's coming." She hung up, but I was already smiling. Lana had just made another mistake. She'd threatened me over the phone, and Miles, being an ex-cop, had been recording everything on his own device. "Evidence," he said, holding up his phone. "Might come in handy." While waiting for the tow truck, I used Miles's laptop to check the video's progress. Over 10,000 views now, with comments pouring in from across the legal community. Someone had even created a meme using a screenshot of Lana's face with the caption, "Employee of the Month." But the real victory was in my email inbox. A message from Morrison & Associates' HR department informing me that due to recent developments and a review of hiring practices, they would like to discuss the senior project coordinator position with me at my earliest convenience. I called them immediately and scheduled an interview for the following day. "One more thing," I told Miles as the tow truck loaded my vandalized car. "I need to borrow your surveillance equipment." "Planning something?" "Just evening the odds." Lana's retaliation campaign began in earnest the next morning. I woke up to find my LinkedIn profile had been reported and temporarily suspended. My professional email account was flooded with spam, and someone had posted fake reviews of Banner Engineering claiming I was unstable and unreliable. But the real masterpiece was the email that went out to everyone in my contact list, friends, family, colleagues, even my dentist, from what appeared to be my own account. "I want to apologize for my recent behavior. I've been struggling with anger management issues and alcohol dependency. My actions regarding my wife's private life were inexcusable. I'm seeking professional help and ask for your patience during this difficult time. Ethan Ross." My phone started ringing immediately. My mother, my brother, my boss, everyone wanted to know if I was okay, if I needed help, if the rumors about my breakdown were true. "Brilliant," I admitted to Miles when he came over with coffee and donuts. "Evil, but brilliant. She's poisoned the well before I can even defend myself." "So what's the plan?" I showed him the surveillance equipment I'd ordered overnight. Tiny cameras, audio recorders, GPS trackers. If Lana wants to play dirty, we're going to document everything. Every threat, every act of sabotage, every lie. That's a lot of equipment for one woman. She's not working alone. Lawyers have connections, private investigators, process servers, people who specialize in making problems disappear. We need to be ready. The first test came that afternoon. I was walking back from my interview at Morrison & Associates, which had gone surprisingly well, when a man in an expensive suit approached me on the sidewalk. Ethan Ross? He was tall, muscular, with the kind of tan that comes from golf courses and yacht clubs. I'm Derek Hoffman, a friend of Lana's. I recognized the name. Derek was a partner at Lana's new firm, the one that had hired her after Morrison imploded. He was also, according to office gossip, recently divorced and actively hunting for wife number 2. Congratulations on landing the promotion, he continued. Lana mentioned you'd applied for the same position. Must be awkward. Not really. I got the job on merit. His smile was all teeth, no warmth. Right. Well, I wanted to have a friendly conversation about this whole situation. Man to man. I'm listening. Lana's been through enough. The video, the public humiliation, losing her job. Don't you think it's time to let it go? I pretended to consider this. You know what? You're absolutely right. I should probably take down that video. Exactly. Show some class. There's just one problem, I continued. I didn't post it. Derek's confident expression flickered. What? The video was uploaded from an anonymous account using a public Wi-Fi network. Could have been anyone who had access to the footage. Disgruntled hotel employee, maybe. Or someone with a grudge against Morrison and Associates. You expect me to believe... I don't expect you to believe anything. But if you're going to threaten me, you should probably have your facts straight first. His friendly mask slipped completely. Nobody's threatening anyone. I'm just suggesting that continued harassment might have consequences. What kind of consequences? The kind that make it hard to find work in this city. Chicago's legal and architectural communities are smaller than you think. I smiled and pulled out my phone, showing him the voice recording app that had been running since he'd approached me. Is that a threat, Derek? Because it sounds like a threat. His face went red. You little... Careful, I warned. We're in public, and I'm recording everything. Your firm probably has policies about partners engaging in intimidation. He stormed off without another word, but I knew this wasn't over. Lana was building an army, and Derek was just the first soldier. That evening, Miles helped me install the surveillance system in my apartment. Hidden cameras in the living room and hallway, motion sensors on the doors and windows, audio recorders in the phone and internet connections. Paranoid much? He joked, adjusting a camera angle. Not paranoid, prepared. We didn't have to wait long. At 2 a.m., the motion sensors triggered, and I watched on my phone as 2 figures approached my door. They worked quickly and quietly, picking the lock with professional efficiency. I called 911 from the bedroom while Miles positioned himself in the hallway with a baseball bat. The intruders were inside for less than 5 minutes, long enough to plant something in my computer and rifle through my desk drawers. They were gone by the time the police arrived, but the cameras had captured everything: faces, license plates, even audio of their conversation. Laptop's clean, one had said. Plant the drive and grab anything that looks financial. Boss wants this to look like a robbery gone wrong. The police were skeptical until I showed them the footage. Within hours, they'd identified both men as private investigators with a history of questionable tactics. More importantly, their employer was listed as Derek Hoffman's law firm. I called Derek personally to share the good news. Funny thing, I told him when he answered. The police just arrested 2 men for breaking into my apartment. Apparently, they're on your payroll. Silence. I'm sure it's just a coincidence, I continued, but you might want to call your lawyer. Breaking and entering is a felony, and conspiracy charges tend to stick when there's video evidence. You can't prove... Actually, I can. High-definition video, clear audio, license plates, employment records. Your guys were thorough, but not very smart. I hung up and immediately called the State Bar Association to file a complaint against Derek for witness intimidation and criminal conspiracy. Then I called the local news stations with an exclusive story about a prominent law firm using criminal tactics to silence a whistleblower. By morning, Derek Hoffman was suspended from practice pending investigation, and his firm was in damage control mode. Lana had lost another ally, but she wasn't finished. The next attack came through my employer. Someone had called Banner Engineering claiming to be from the IRS, asking questions about my tax compliance and suggesting an audit might be warranted. They'd also contacted several of our clients, implying that I might be under investigation for professional misconduct. Mr. Banner called me into his office, looking more tired than angry. "Ethan, what the hell is going on? I've got federal agents asking about you, clients questioning our integrity, and rumors flying about everything from tax evasion to professional sabotage." I showed him the evidence I'd compiled, the fake emails, the harassment campaign, the break-in footage, Derek's threats. His weathered face grew darker with each revelation. "So your ex-wife is trying to destroy your career out of spite?" "That's the situation, yes, sir." He leaned back in his chair, studying me. "You know what? I've been in this business for 30 years. I've seen vindictive spouses, crooked competitors, and every kind of professional sabotage you can imagine. But I've never seen anyone fight back this systematically." "Sir? You documented everything. You stayed within legal boundaries. You turned defense into offense." He grinned. "I'm impressed, and I'm promoting you to senior project manager, effective immediately." The promotion came with a significant raise and, more importantly, connections throughout Chicago's development community. Word spread quickly that Banner Engineering stood behind its people, and that Ethan Ross was not someone to be underestimated. Lana's response was swift and vicious. That evening, I found my apartment building's lobby filled with flyers featuring my photo and the headline, "Domestic Abuser Alert." The text claimed I had a history of violence against women and urged neighbors to stay vigilant. But Lana had made a crucial error. She'd used my professional headshot from the Banner Engineering website, which was copyrighted material. She'd also made specific claims about criminal behavior that could be easily disproven. I spent the night documenting everything, collecting the flyers, and preparing a comprehensive defamation lawsuit. Then I called every news outlet in Chicago with an exclusive story about a prominent attorney's campaign of harassment against her ex-husband. The story broke the next morning. "Lawyers' Revenge When Professional Ethics Go Wrong." The article detailed Lana's entire campaign, complete with evidence and expert commentary on legal ethics violations. My phone rang within minutes. It was Priya Patel, Lana's old rival at Morrison & Associates, who had recently been promoted to managing partner in the firm's restructuring. "Mr. Ross," she said, "I think we need to talk." Priya Patel was nothing like I'd expected. Where Lana was all sharp edges and calculated charm, Priya radiated quiet competence. She met me at a small cafe near Morrison's offices, arriving precisely on time with a leather portfolio and the kind of focused attention that made you feel like the only person in the room. "I've been following your situation with interest," she began, stirring her coffee methodically. "Lana's campaign has been quite thorough." "You could call it that. I prefer to call it professionally suicidal." She opened her portfolio and slid a document across the table. "This is why I wanted to meet." The document was a printout of email exchanges between Lana and Vic, dating back 6 months. The subject lines alone told the story: Ross application, strategic response, eliminating competition, ensuring favorable outcome. "Where did you get these?" "Vic's computer was seized as part of the partnership dissolution. I'm the court-appointed administrator reviewing all firm communications for potential conflicts of interest." She smiled slightly. "It's amazing what people put in writing when they think they're untouchable." I read through the emails, my anger growing with each exchange. They hadn't just conspired to steal my job. They'd actively sabotaged my application, spreading rumors about my competence, and even forging a negative reference from a previous employer. "This is evidence of fraud," I said, "among other things. But here's what's really interesting." She flipped to another section. Lana wasn't just sleeping with Vic for the promotion. She was feeding him information about Morrison's clients, helping him steer business to firms that would kick back a percentage. That's criminal. Yes, the FBI is very interested in these communications. I leaned back, processing the implications. Why are you showing me this? Because Lana Ross has been a thorn in my side for years. She's arrogant, unethical, and she gives female attorneys a bad name, but mostly because I believe in justice. And what she did to you was unconscionable. What do you want in return? Your help. I'm building a case that will ensure Lana never practices law again. But I need someone with intimate knowledge of her methods, her contacts, her vulnerabilities. I thought about Derek's threats, the break-in, the character assassination campaign. Lana had declared war on me. It was time to return the favor. What did you have in mind? Priya's plan was elegant in its simplicity. Rather than attacking Lana directly, we would let her destroy herself. She was already making mistakes, escalating her harassment campaign beyond what any reasonable person would consider justified. We just needed to document everything and wait for her to cross the line into criminal behavior. She's desperate, Priya explained. She's lost her job, her reputation, and now her new allies are abandoning her. Desperate people make poor decisions. The first opportunity came sooner than expected. That evening, I received a call from my building's security company. The alarm system in my apartment had been triggered, but when they called the backup contact number, Lana, who I'd forgotten to remove from the list, she'd claimed to be checking on the property with my permission. She's in your apartment right now, the security guard explained. Said you asked her to pick up some documents. I'm calling the police, I said, already heading for my car. Should we confront her? No, just keep monitoring. I want this documented. I called Miles and Priya on the way, putting them on speaker as I cut through downtown traffic like the city didn't exist. Lights, horns, pedestrians, none of it registered. My focus was locked on the live feed streaming from the apartment's surveillance system. Lana wasn't panicking. She wasn't smashing things in rage. She was searching, methodically, with purpose. Every drawer opened, every folder checked, every container dumped out and inspected before being tossed aside. A predator hunting for one specific target. She's looking for something specific, Miles said, voice calm but tight. I could hear the keys of his laptop. He was already digging through file access logs, timestamps, digital fingerprints. Not random vandalism, he added. She knows exactly what she's after. The evidence files, I said. My fingers tightened on the steering wheel. She finally realized how much I've collected on her. Too bad for her, Priya said, tone clipped, satisfied. You keep backups on 3 continents and an automatic failsafe. I didn't answer. She already knew I did. I arrived at my building at the same time as the police cruiser. 2 officers stepped out, already briefed, already alert. We didn't waste time talking. We just moved. Elevator, 14th floor, quiet hallway. The kind of silence that happens right before something breaks. We stopped outside my door. Movement inside, furniture scraping, papers hitting the floor. Lana was still tearing through my life like she owned it. Chicago PD, the lead officer said, knocking hard enough to rattle the frame. Open the door. The noise inside stopped instantly, like someone hit pause. For 3 full seconds, nothing. Then the lock clicked, and Lana opened the door with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Officers, thank goodness you're here. I was just breaking and entering, I said, stepping past her without waiting for permission. The living room looked like a scene of chaos. Desk gutted, filing cabinets overturned, couch cushions thrown aside, as if she expected me to hide a flash drive in the foam. She had gone through my life the same way she went through people, intrusive, self-righteous, convinced she could rewrite reality to fit her version of the truth. This is my apartment too, Lana snapped. I have a right to be here. The officer didn't even look up from the clipboard. Actually, you don't. The lease is solely in Mr. Ross's name, and you were served with a restraining order this morning." Her face froze. "What restraining order?" Priya stepped into view, all business, legal folder in hand. "The one filed at 9:14 a.m., citing your harassment campaign, conspiracy to interfere with housing, recorded threats, and now forced entry. You've formally violated it in under 12 hours. That's a record." Lana's confidence cracked. Not shattered. Not yet, but fractured enough for the real panic to show behind her eyes. The officers cuffed her. She tried to twist away. She tried to talk her way out. She tried to act like the victim. "This isn't over," she hissed at me as they walked her out. Her voice dropped to a venomous whisper only I could hear. "You think you've won? You haven't even seen what I can do." I looked at her the same way I'd look at a lab rat who didn't understand the experiment was already finished. "Actually," I said quietly, "I think it is. I was wrong. Lana's arrest didn't end anything. It detonated the next phase. Within 24 hours, she made bail and came back with a new lawyer, the kind of attorney who didn't care about innocence, only victory. Someone who treated the law like a blunt weapon and ethics like a suggestion. The counterattack came fast. A motion claiming the restraining order was fraudulent, that she'd been invited into the apartment. A civil suit accusing me of defamation, arguing that the video and its viral spread had irreparably damaged her career. A media push painting herself as a wronged woman, stalked and slandered by a vengeful ex. The goal wasn't to win in court. The goal was to bury me in process, motion by motion, hearing by hearing, hour by hour. Not a legal defense, a legal siege. And that was when I finally understood. Lana didn't want justice. She wanted war. But the real surprise was the criminal complaint they filed against me for revenge pornography and unlawful surveillance. The argument was creative. By recording Lana in the hotel without her consent, I had violated state privacy laws and distributed intimate content for the purpose of harassment. "It's a stretch," Priya admitted, when we met to discuss strategy. "But it's clever. Even if the charges don't stick, the publicity will damage your reputation." "So what do? We accelerate our timeline. I've been building a comprehensive case against Lana, but I was planning to wait until we had every detail perfect. Now we need to go public, before she can control the narrative." That evening, Priya held a press conference outside the Morrison & Associates building. She presented a devastating picture of corruption within Chicago's legal community, complete with documentation of Lana's fraud, Vic's kickback schemes, and Derek's criminal conspiracy. "This isn't just about one woman's vendetta against her ex-husband," Priya told the assembled reporters. "This is about a pattern of corruption that has infected multiple law firms and compromised the integrity of our legal system." The story exploded across Chicago media. Within hours, the FBI announced they were opening a formal investigation into the Morrison kickback scheme. Derek's firm issued a statement suspending him pending review, and Lana's new lawyer suddenly became unavailable for comment. But Lana wasn't finished. If she was going down, she was determined to take me with her. The next morning, I woke up to find my car vandalized again, this time with acid that had eaten through the paint and into the metal. My apartment building's lobby was covered with new flyers, these ones claiming I was a dangerous individual and including my photo, address, and phone number. The harassment calls started immediately. Angry voices demanding I leave the neighborhood, threatening violence, calling me every name in the book. I had to disconnect my landline and change my cell number twice, but the worst was yet to come. That afternoon, I received a call from Banner Engineering's HR department. Someone had filed a formal complaint, claiming I had harassed female coworkers and created a hostile work environment. "It's obviously false," Mr. Banner assured me when I met with him and the HR director. "But we have to investigate. Company policy." "Who filed the complaint?" "Anonymous tip line. but the caller provided very specific details about incidents that allegedly occurred over the past year. I knew immediately who was behind it. Lana had interviewed my female colleagues, probably posing as a journalist or researcher, and twisted innocent interactions into evidence of misconduct. "I want to take a polygraph," I said. "I want every female employee interviewed formally, and I want to know exactly what allegations have been made." The investigation took 3 days, 3 days during which I was suspended from work, banned from the office, and forced to watch my professional reputation hang in the balance. The stress was overwhelming: sleepless nights, constant anxiety, the feeling that everything I'd built was crumbling around me. But on the 4th day, Banner called me back to the office with good news. "The investigation is closed," he announced. "Every allegation was either demonstrably false or based on mischaracterized interactions. More importantly, we traced the anonymous tip to a burner phone purchased with a credit card registered to Lana Ross." She used her own credit card? Apparently she thought she was being clever by using a fake name, but the billing address was her hotel. I laughed for the first time in days. So she's committed fraud, harassment, and filing false police reports. Among other things, our legal department is preparing a comprehensive lawsuit. We don't take kindly to people attacking our employees. That evening, I met with Priya and Miles to plan our final offensive. Lana had overplayed her hand, leaving a trail of evidence that would ensure her complete professional destruction. But I wanted more than just legal victory. I wanted public vindication. "She's cornered now," Priya observed. "Desperate. That makes her dangerous." "What's the worst she can do?" Miles looked up from his laptop, where he'd been monitoring social media mentions of my name. "According to this, she's planning some kind of public confrontation, posted on her Facebook page about facing your accusers and the truth will out." "Where?" "The Morrison Building. Tomorrow at noon. She's calling it a press conference to reveal the real story." I smiled grimly. "Perfect. Let's give her an audience she'll never forget." The Morrison and Associates building buzzed with anticipation as reporters, legal professionals, and curious onlookers gathered for what promised to be the most spectacular professional meltdown in Chicago legal history. Lana had chosen the location carefully, the scene of her former triumph, now the symbol of her disgrace. I arrived early with Priya and Miles, positioning ourselves across the street where we could observe without being immediately visible. Lana appeared at exactly noon, flanked by her new lawyer and what appeared to be a small crowd of supporters, mostly people I didn't recognize, probably hired for the occasion. She looked terrible. The confident, polished woman I'd married had been replaced by someone desperate and slightly unhinged. Her hair was unkempt, her makeup heavy-handed, and her movements had the jerky quality of someone running on caffeine and rage. "Ladies and gentlemen of the press," she began, her voice carrying across the plaza through a portable microphone. "I'm here today to expose the real story behind the character assassination I've endured." The crowd was larger than I'd expected, maybe 50 people, including reporters from all the major local outlets. Lana had managed to generate genuine interest in her story. My ex-husband, Ethan Ross, has waged a campaign of revenge against me that goes far beyond anything I allegedly did to him. He's violated my privacy, destroyed my career, and turned my life into a living nightmare, all because I had the audacity to succeed where he failed. She was good, I had to admit. The victim narrative was compelling, and she delivered it with the kind of emotional authenticity that comes from genuine desperation. He recorded me without consent in private moments, distributed intimate content to destroy my reputation, and has systematically harassed anyone who tried to help me rebuild my life. A reporter raised her hand. "Ms. Ross, what about the evidence of fraud and corruption that's been presented against you?" "Fabricated," Lana replied without hesitation. "Ethan has connections in the tech industry. He's skilled at manipulating digital evidence. The emails, the recordings, even the security footage, All of it has been doctored or taken out of context. It was a bold strategy. Rather than denying the affair or the job manipulation, she was claiming everything was fake. In an era of deep fakes and digital manipulation, it wasn't entirely implausible. Then why haven't you filed charges against him for evidence tampering? Another reporter asked. Because the system is rigged against victims like me. Ethan has cultivated relationships with prosecutors, judges, even the FBI agents investigating this case. He's turned my own profession against me. The crowd was murmuring now, some people nodding along with her narrative. Lana was spinning a conspiracy theory that painted her as the victim of an elaborate frame-up orchestrated by her vengeful ex-husband. But I have proof, she continued, pulling out a tablet. Evidence that will show you who Ethan Ross really is. This was unexpected. I felt Miles tense beside me as Lana began swiping through what appeared to be photographs on her device. These are pictures from our marriage, she announced. Pictures that show the real Ethan Ross, controlling, manipulative, abusive. She held up the tablet, and I could see she was displaying photos that had been digitally manipulated. Images of me that had been altered to suggest violence or intimidation. Shadows added to make me look menacing, body language edited to appear threatening. She's good, Priya murmured. Desperate, but good. But Lana had made a crucial error. In her rush to create compelling evidence, she'd used photos that I could easily disprove. Several were from events where I had alibis, others showed me in locations I'd never been. I stepped forward into the crowd, and a murmur went through the assembled reporters as they recognized me. Interesting photos, Lana, I called out, especially the one of me supposedly threatening you at that restaurant in New York, the restaurant that closed 6 months before the date stamp on your image. Her face went white, but she pressed on. You're here to intimidate me again, just like you always did. Actually, I'm here to present evidence of my own. I pulled out my phone and connected it to a portable speaker that Miles had set up. This is a recording of a conversation between Lana Ross and Derek Hoffman made 3 days ago. Lana's voice filled the plaza. I don't care what it takes. I want Ethan destroyed. His job, his reputation, his life. I want him to lose everything like I did. Derek's response was equally damning. The harassment campaign isn't working. Maybe it's time to consider more direct action. What kind of direct action? The kind that makes problems disappear permanently. The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. Lana grabbed for the microphone, but her lawyer was already pulling her away from the podium. That's taken out of context, she screamed. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, I replied, stepping up to the microphone she'd abandoned. You conspired to commit fraud, harassment, and possibly worse, and you documented it all. Priya joined me at the microphone, carrying a thick folder of documents. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Priya Patel, managing partner at Morrison & Associates. I have here comprehensive evidence of a corruption scheme involving Ms. Ross, former partner Victor Salerno, and attorney Derek Hoffman. She began reading from the documents, emails detailing kickback schemes, recorded conversations planning my professional sabotage, financial records showing illegal payments between firms. But the real bombshell came when she announced, the FBI has informed me that Ms. Ross and Mr. Hoffman are being indicted on federal conspiracy charges. Warrants were issued this morning. As if on cue, 2 black SUVs pulled up to the plaza. Federal agents emerged and moved purposefully toward Lana, who was trying to disappear into the crowd. Lana Ross, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, obstruction of justice, and violation of federal communications laws. The arrest was swift and professional. As they led Lana away in handcuffs for the second time in a week, she turned back toward me with a look of absolute hatred. This isn't over, she shouted. You think you've won, but... The agent guiding her cut off her words by helping her into the back of the SUV. The crowd of reporters surged forward, shouting questions, but the vehicles were already pulling away. I found myself standing alone at the microphone, facing dozens of cameras and reporters. For a moment, the magnitude of what had just happened overwhelmed me. 6 months ago, I'd been an invisible engineer in a failing marriage. Now I was at the center of the biggest legal scandal in Chicago in years. "Mr. Ross," a reporter called out, "how do you feel about your ex-wife's arrest?" I thought about everything Lana had put me through, the betrayal, the humiliation, the systematic attempt to destroy my life. I thought about the sleepless nights, the constant anxiety, the feeling that I was fighting a battle I couldn't win. Then I thought about where I stood now, promoted at work, respected by my peers, surrounded by allies who had helped me fight back against injustice. "I feel," I said finally, "like justice has been served." The crowd erupted in questions, but I was already walking away. Miles and Priya flanked me as we made our way through the throng of reporters and onlookers. "So what now?" Miles asked as we reached his car. "Now we go back to work," I replied. "I have a company to help run and a life to rebuild." "And Lana?" I looked back at the Morrison building, where Lana had once stood triumphant after stealing my job. The plaza was already emptying, reporters rushing off to file their stories, spectators drifting away to their normal lives. "Lana made her choices," I said. "Now she gets to live with the consequences." As we drove away, my phone buzzed with notifications, interview requests, congratulations from colleagues, even a few job offers from competing firms. But I ignored them all. I had work to do, and for the first time in months, I was looking forward to it. The underdog had won. The game was over. But as we turned the corner away from the Morrison building, I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure standing in the shadows across the street, watching our departure with calculating eyes. Someone who had been conspicuously absent from Lana's press conference, someone who still had reasons to want me silenced. Victor Salerno was still out there, still dangerous, and still had everything to lose. The game, I realized, wasn't over at all. It was just entering its final phase. 3 days after Lana's arrest, I was working late at Banner Engineering when Miles called with troubling news. "Vic Salerno's been asking questions about you," he said without preamble. "My contacts at CPD say he's hired a private security firm, the expensive kind that doesn't ask too many questions about their methods." I saved my work and leaned back in my chair, processing this information. "What kind of questions?" "Your daily routine, where you live, where you work, who you spend time with. Classic surveillance prep." "He's planning something." "That's my read. Guy's lost everything. His firm, his marriage, his reputation. The federal investigation is closing in, and he's looking at serious prison time. Desperate men do desperate things." I thought about Vic's last public appearance, 3 days ago at Lana's disastrous press conference. He'd been notably absent, which at the time I'd attributed to legal advice. Now I realized he'd been planning his own response. "What do you recommend?" "Disappear for a while. Take a vacation, visit family, get out of Chicago until the heat dies down." "I'm not running from that man." "Ethan, no. I've spent months being reactive, responding to their attacks, playing defense. It's time to go on offense." Miles was quiet for a moment. "What did you have in mind?" "Vic Salerno thinks he can intimidate me into silence. He's wrong. It's time to show him exactly how wrong." The next morning, I called in sick to work and spent the day researching Victor Salerno's current situation. What I found was a man in free fall, desperately trying to salvage something from the wreckage of his life. His wife Linda had filed for divorce and was demanding half of everything. The FBI had frozen most of his assets pending their investigation. His former law partners had not only expelled him from the firm, but were actively cooperating with federal prosecutors to minimize their own exposure. But Vic still had one significant asset: his reputation in Chicago's social circles. He was fighting to maintain his membership in exclusive clubs, his position on various charity boards, his status as a pillar of the community. That reputation was all he had left, and he was willing to do anything to protect it. That gave me an idea. I spent the afternoon making phone calls, leveraging the connections I'd built through my promotion and recent media coverage. By evening, I had what I needed: an invitation to the annual Chicago Legal Foundation Gala, where Vic would be making what many expected to be his farewell appearance in polite society. The gala was held at the Palmer House, in a ballroom that reeked of old money and older secrets. I arrived fashionably late, wearing my best suit and carrying a leather portfolio that contained everything I needed for the evening's entertainment. Vic was holding court near the bar, surrounded by a small group of supporters who hadn't yet abandoned him completely. He looked older than his 57 years, stress and alcohol having taken their toll. But his voice was still strong, his manner still commanding. "The whole thing is a witch hunt," he was saying as I approached. "Ambitious prosecutors looking to make names for themselves by destroying successful people." "Interesting theory," I said, stepping into the circle. "Mind if I join the conversation?" The group turned toward me, and I saw recognition dawn in several faces. I'd become something of a celebrity in legal circles, the engineer who'd brought down a corruption ring and exposed his cheating wife. Vic's face darkened, but he maintained his composure. "Mr. Ross, I didn't expect to see you here. I'm full of surprises. Just ask your friend Lana." A few people chuckled nervously, but the tension in the group was palpable. Everyone knew about the bad feeling between Vic and me, and they were waiting to see how this would play out. "I hear congratulations are in order," Vic continued smoothly. "Your promotion, the media attention, quite a reversal of fortune. Hard work pays off. You should try it sometime." His smile was razor thin. "I've worked hard my entire career, built something meaningful, contributed to my community. It's unfortunate that vindictive people can destroy decades of achievement with lies and manipulation." "Speaking of lies," I said, opening my portfolio, "I thought you might be interested in these." I pulled out a stack of photographs and handed them to the nearest person in our circle. They were surveillance photos of Vic meeting with known criminals, loan sharks, money launderers, people who specialized in making problems disappear. "These were taken yesterday," I announced as the photos circulated through the group. "Apparently, Mr. Salerno has been seeking alternative solutions to his legal problems." Vic's face went pale as he recognized the images. "Where did you get these?" "Same place I got these," I replied, pulling out a second set of documents. Financial records showing payments to offshore accounts, communications with individuals known to law enforcement, plans for what your new associates call permanent problem resolution. The group around us was growing as other gala attendees noticed the commotion. Vic found himself at the center of a growing crowd, all staring at evidence of his descent into criminal conspiracy. "This is fabricated," he said desperately. "Digital manipulation, just like everything else this man has done." "Really? Then you won't mind if I call FBI agent Martinez to verify their authenticity?" I pulled out my phone and began dialing. Vic lunged forward trying to grab the device, but I'd anticipated his move. I stepped back smoothly, letting him stumble into the space where I'd been standing. "Careful, Vic. Assault in front of witnesses tends to support conspiracy charges," Agent Martinez answered on the second ring. I'd briefed her earlier about my plan, and she was ready to play her part. "Agent Martinez, this is Ethan Ross. I'm at the Legal Foundation Gala with Victor Salerno, and he's expressing doubts about the authenticity of the surveillance photos. Yes, the ones from yesterday's meeting with Tony Marconi. You can confirm they're genuine? Excellent." I hung up and addressed the crowd, which now included several prominent judges and prosecutors. "Agent Martinez confirms that these photos are part of an ongoing federal investigation into Mr. Salerno's recent activities." Vic was trapped. The evidence was real. I'd spent considerable effort and money obtaining it through legitimate private investigators. His meetings with criminals were documented fact, his desperation having driven him to seek solutions outside the law. "You set me up," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I documented your choices. There's a difference." The crowd began to disperse, people distancing themselves from Vic as word spread through the ballroom. Within minutes, he was standing alone, his remaining supporters having melted away like snow in summer. But I wasn't finished. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced, raising my voice to address the entire ballroom, "I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Chicago legal community for their support during my recent difficulties." The room grew quiet, everyone sensing that something significant was about to happen. 6 months ago, I was just another engineer, invisible and unremarkable. Then I discovered that my wife was leveraging personal relationships for professional advancement and that prominent members of this community were complicit in fraud and corruption. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This wasn't the usual gala entertainment. I could have handled this quietly, privately. I could have accepted my humiliation and moved on with my life. But I chose to fight back, to expose the truth, to demand justice. I looked directly at Vic, who was standing frozen near the bar. Some people didn't appreciate that choice. They escalated the conflict, using harassment, intimidation, and ultimately criminal conspiracy to try to silence me. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the ballroom's sound system. This is a recording of a conversation between Victor Salerno and Anthony Marconi, made yesterday afternoon. Vic's voice filled the elegant ballroom. "I want this problem eliminated permanently. I don't care what it costs or how you do it." Marconi's gravelly reply was equally clear. "Accidents happen all the time. Guy like that, works late, walks alone, easy target. Just make sure it can't be traced back to me." The ballroom erupted in shocked gasps and angry murmurs. Several people pulled out their phones, undoubtedly calling law enforcement or their own security. Vic stood in the center of it all, his face ashen, his career and reputation destroyed beyond any hope of recovery. "The FBI will be here shortly to arrest Mr. Salerno," I announced calmly. "I thought you should all know the kind of man you've been socializing with." As if summoned by my words, federal agents appeared at the ballroom entrances. They moved efficiently through the crowd, converging on Vic with professional precision. "Victor Salerno, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, obstruction of justice, and violation of federal racketeering statutes." As they led him away in handcuffs, Vic turned back toward me one final time. But instead of hatred or anger, I saw something unexpected in his eyes: respect. He'd played the game as ruthlessly as he knew how, and he'd lost. But he was professional enough to recognize superior strategy when he saw it. The ballroom slowly returned to normal as the agents departed with their prisoner. Conversations resumed, drinks were refreshed, and the evening's program continued as if nothing had happened. But everything had changed. I was no longer the wronged husband seeking justice. I was the man who had taken on Chicago's legal establishment and won. The underdog who had become something else entirely. Priya appeared beside me as I gathered my materials. "Impressive," she said. "Though I have to ask, how did you know he'd escalate to violence?" I didn't know, but I prepared for the possibility. "The surveillance, the recordings, you've been planning this for weeks." "Months. Ever since Lana first betrayed me, I've been thinking 3 moves ahead." She studied me with new interest. "You've changed, Ethan. The man I met 6 months ago wouldn't have been capable of this. 6 months ago, I thought the world was fair. I thought hard work and integrity mattered. I thought people could be trusted. And now?" I looked around the ballroom, at the powerful people who had watched Vic's downfall with fascination rather than horror, who were already calculating how his absence might benefit their own ambitions. Now I know better. The game is rigged, but that doesn't mean you can't win. You just have to be willing to play by the real rules, not the ones they tell you about. As we left the Palmer house, I felt a sense of completion that had been missing for months. Lana was facing federal charges. Vic would spend the rest of his life in prison. Derek had been disbarred and was under investigation himself. The war was over. I had won. But victory came with a price. The man who walked out of that ballroom wasn't the same person who had discovered his wife's betrayal 6 months earlier. That man had been naive, trusting, willing to believe in fairness and justice. This man knew better. This man understood that in the real world, you either predator or prey, and Ethan Ross would never be prey again.